optimal impression, and the upper reddish curve is the optimal impression plus 6 mils, which is quite a bit. And you can see that there's some substantial gain, particularly in the mid-tone, that results. Between 30 and 50% tone scales, you're looking at somewhere between 10 and 15 percentage points increase in gain as a result of the increased impression. If you look at the same exact photopolymer plate, but this time processed as a digital plate with the LUX technology, you'll see that there's considerably less impact of impression. And now, between 30 and 50%, you see a much smaller difference between the two curves. Let's blow this up so you can see it better. And you'll see that LUX on the same photopolymer reduced the dot gain caused by impression by anywhere from 30 to 60%, where in the upper standard digital plate you have a 10 to 15% percentage point increase in gain. The LUX plate in the same region has only about a 5% increase. What are the advantages of this? Well, fundamentally, it means that the dot gain is less sensitive to impression and allows greater consistency. It's very difficult to hit the same impression over and over and over again, but with LUX, you don't necessarily have to because you're not going to see a big difference in it. This is also going to mean that over the course of the run, you're going to have to make fewer stops for adjustment. You're going to be able to maintain longer runs, which is ultimately more profitable for the printer. Now let's talk about the effects of plate wear. Over the course of a long run, it's not impossible to see wear in the plate, and this is an example where I can show a production run that was done in a commercial plant using Digital Max, a 60-durometer plate. They were 107-inch plates, thickness plates. The plates were run almost 900,000 linear feet on a shrink film using a solvent-based ink. And if you look at the picture of the highlight dots shown at the beginning of the run and the end of the run, there's definitely some evidence of wear in the plate. Not dramatic, but you can see that the dots are a little bit shorter. Their tips are not quite so well defined at the end of the run as they were at the beginning. However, if you look at the print that resulted at both portions of the run, you'll see that although there's some evidence of wear in the plate, there's no evidence of it in the print. The dot sizes are virtually identical from the beginning and the end of the run. So your color, your quality of your vignette fade was essentially kept constant throughout the run. Another advantage that the printer cited was that they didn't have to stop the press to clean these plates, like they might have to do with standard digital plates. This was an estimated 3-hour savings for them, which is 3 hours where instead of performing maintenance on the press, they were actually printing and making money with it. Let's look at some of the reasons why we might see better consistency and clean printing from the LUX plate compared to the standard digital plate. Again, if you look at the profile of the two dots that I'm showing there, the standard digital and the LUX digital, you'll see in particular that the deeper valley depth that I spoke about earlier is very evident. And if you take outlines of both and superimpose them, you can see how much this is. This is pretty substantial. You're looking at something probably 25% of the total valley depth is greater in the LUX plate than it is on the standard digital plate. So essentially, if you do have any ink that builds up in between those dots, it's going to take a good bit longer for it to build up to the point that you're going to see dirty print or dot bridging. Okay, well, we've talked about quality and consistency. Let's now talk about the versatility of the LUX technology. This is an example of a printer who successfully moved gravure job to Flexo by moving to LUX. Again, this was a job where there was an increase in line screen from 125 to 150 line screen that was made possible through the use of LUX without any other changes to the print train. This was actually was intended as the first production scale test of LUX in this particular printer, but the brand owner responsible for the feed bag that you see there was present and was so pleased with the print that they signed off within a half an hour and the entire job was run using the LUX plates. The other nice thing that the print operators cited was the fact that they had to use less impression with the LUX plates than they did with standard digital plates. This, again, is a consequence of the effect I talked about before, where all of the elements in a LUX plate are type high or at the same level. So all of them come up to color at the same time, and you don't have to over-impress one part of the plate in order to get the highlights to print. This particular printer has continued on very successfully with the LUX technology and is now moving multiple jobs from gravure to Flexo, which results in substantial savings over the course of the short print runs that are common at this place. Here's the other end of the spectrum. This is a LUX user in the narrow web. As is common in many narrow web accounts today, this printer has, in addition to multiple flexo presses, an HP Indigo digital press as well, and they do move jobs back and forth between them. The interesting thing about this particular comparison is that both of these prints were made with the exact same file. There were no changes made in moving from the flexo press to the digital press. This gives this printer the option of moving jobs based on the economics of the print run rather than on the quality obtainable. The quality is virtually indistinguishable between the two, with highlights showing very, very good definition in both. If anything, from looking at these, I'd have to say that the color saturation is a little better on the flexo sample. But this opens up a whole new world for this printer because they can now make decisions based on, rather than making decisions on limitations, they can make decisions based on economics. Let's talk about the ease of integration of LUX. One of the best things about it is that it's really very easy to put into your operation. As I mentioned before, the workflow only adds about 4 to 6 minutes to the overall plate making process. The actual time required for lamination of a full 5280 plate is only 110 seconds. So ultimately, this has no material effect on your plate making capacity. It's not the rate limiting step, and it adds very little time overall. The equipment footprint is quite small. The 62-inch laminator that I showed a picture of earlier only takes up 22 square feet. We'll be introducing a 38-inch wide laminator very shortly that will only take up 16 square feet. The laminators are mobile and can be moved to wherever you need them or moved out of the way if you don't need them at a particular time. So there's a tremendous amount of flexibility in terms of how you situate the laminator. The other nice thing is that LUX is completely flexible. It works with all digital plates, all plate thicknesses from the thinnest of thin plates to the thickest of corrugated plates, all plate format sizes from the smallest all the way up to 52 by 80-inch plates, all digital imager types, and all exposure and plate processor types. And it's backwards compatible, which means that you use LUX when you want, but you can continue on with your standard digital workflow whenever that's more convenient or advantageous for you. So if you have a great deal of legacy work that you're using standard digital process on now and your customer is happy with that, please continue on using that. Happy customers are what all of us want to get, and so there's no need for you to change. You don't have to invest in new prepress for your legacy jobs, but for those jobs that you'd like to get the advantages available with the LUX type dot, you can make those changes then and use LUX when you need it and not when you don't. The other exciting thing for us is that we're finding that LUX is opening up a whole world of other technologies that we can now address. Hybrid screening in itself is not a new technology. It's been around for a long time. The typical knock against it has been that it can result in a kind of a grainy appearance in the highlights or as you fade into vignettes. This is due to the fact that in selecting the minimum dot choice for the hybrid screen, they can often be slightly larger than ideal, which results in this grainy effect. With the ability to form a very solid, well-structured, and small dot with LUX, this now allows us to select a minimum dot size, which is more advantageous for use in hybrid screening, and we're seeing some excellent results with the use of techniques like this. In addition, LUX works extremely well with some of the other advanced prepress techniques that are coming on the market. I'll cite ESCO's microcell in particular right here. This is a really clever technology that allows you to do a very fine surface patterning, both in the solids, as shown in the upper picture, as well as even down into the tonal areas, as shown in the lower picture. The effect of this is quite dramatic and quite positive. The ink laydown is usually improved considerably, where you get simply a smoother laydown with fewer pinholes and often better solid ink density. LUX, because of its ability to hold the fine details better, actually makes a sharper image of the microcell than does a standard digital plate and works beautifully with this technique. So I hope I've shown you that there are reasons to believe that LUX has advantages in quality, consistency, and versatility that makes it worth your consideration. Ultimately, at the bottom line, LUX is simply a plate-making process that produces flat-top dots from a conventional digital plate. With its advantages, it does things for the printer and the print buyer, like improving the print quality, improving the print consistency, and reducing operating costs by expanding the options for flexographic printing versus other more expensive ones. For the plate maker, it's extremely easy to integrate into a plate-making operation, making it easy to bring into your operation, easy to use, and easy to not use when you don't need it. For all these reasons, this is why we believe that LUX is the next step in flexo printing. For more information on LUX and other MacDermid Printing Solutions flexographic plate products, please visit www.macdermid.com/printing or email us at mpsproductinfo@macdermid.com.